Ron, what's going on? Welcome to Dad Edge.
Good to see you, Larry. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, good to see you too. Speaking of edge, Dad Edge, right? I mean, your story, that's edgy.
Yeah. It's a sharp edge.
it is a sharp edge, and for a lot of the guys that don't know you, we're definitely going to get to it. You want to just start out with some fun questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's just kind of warm up a little bit. So what is something that you like to do outside of work that just brings you joy? It's kind of like your happy place, happy thing, whatever.
Yeah. So I like to fish, that on a boat mostly. I don't like the bank fishing too much, but I love to troll in a boat, tool around the lake, and just spend hours doing nothing. Turn off the phone.
Yeah. You and I were talking right before we hit the record button, and I told you that so I have 4 boys. I have 15, 13, 7, and 5. And I took my 2 oldest ones to Twin Lakes in Colorado, where you live in Colorado. I know you're north of Denver. And we did dispersed camping, and the campsite that we had literally looked right upon Mount Elbert, which was beautiful. Yeah. And then we went down into the valley and we fished in those 2 Twin Lakes. And I just remember, and it was the weekend couldn't have been more perfect. It was 70, 80 degrees at night. It got down to about in the 40s, but it was fine. And I just remember fishing with my boys and looking at the mountainous landscape and all those 14ers that are right there. And I was like, I literally feel like I'm looking at what heaven would probably look like. Yeah. It's just incredible. It's just so much peace when you're out there just with a rod and just enjoying the scenery. And
and when you're up there, you get this sort of euphoria feeling that I don't know how to describe it other than you got the wah-wahs a little bit. You're not really, it must be the altitude maybe with it, but it's almost a high feeling that when you're up there, you're a little bit stoned while you're hanging out up there.
It's the thin air up there, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do this, man. Let's start with, let's go to another question. Okay. What is something that you want to honor and appreciate about the relationship with your wife?
Oh, we work together and we play together and we live together. We do everything together. And, I say I have a best friend. She's also my best friend, but I think to honor her loyalty, our loyalty to each other is probably the biggest, that is something I've had to work on myself. But when I met her, she is just the most loyal person you've ever met. And she is very black and white, and she knows what's right and wrong. And I'm gray all over, man. And I just appreciate and honor it every day that she keeps me, she helps me a lot with the whole gray area. I personally don't know what's right and wrong until I run it through my value system. And that takes me a while sometimes, but it's pretty cool to watch her move. And I just love that about her.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
And there's something that elevates you when you talk about her. There's a look on your face. There's a tone in your voice. There's a smile on your face. And for those of you guys who are not watching us on YouTube, come check out this interview on YouTube. But there's a tremendous amount of admiration and peace when you talk about her. Yeah. Yeah. She brings me peace. And,
she's been my rock. I mean, she's been there through a lot of my story, but mostly the recovery side. And she's I call her my reward for changing my life. We have been good together. And every time I want to do something, every single thing, I mean, I just on a whim, I want to write a book, and off we go. And she supports it. She's behind it 100%. And, if I'm feeling insecure about something, especially new business stuff, she's right there to pick me up and remind me of who I am and, what I'm on track to do and what I'm doing for our family. And, like I said, she grew up knowing right and wrong. She had a perfect family, and I've really leaned on her for her support towards our family and how to treat our children and how to give consequences when necessary. And she's also really come behind the Worley way. That's the 10 values I talk about in the book, of course. She got behind them, and they weren't her values, they were mine, but she adopted them, and away we went. And it was the most wonderful thing we could have done for our relationship. I can't say enough about Erin. That's her name, Erin. Of course I light up, man. She tickled. She's the reason I'm talking to you today, for reals.
Man, there's so much appreciation there. And another theme that really comes out is your relationship is aligned.
Yeah.
You both have very similar visions, and there's support there. And that's super cool. So you guys in the audience, if you gleaned anything from just those first couple questions, it's mutual respect, it's alignment, it's being teammates, right? Yep. And obviously you are very appreciative of that. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's talk about your childhood for a few minutes. So talk to me about siblings, how many you grew up with, and then mom and dad. What were the dynamics like growing up?
So I've never been asked this question before. I'm excited to talk about it because it gets really confusing. Okay. As a child, my father had 2 children, my whole brother with my mother. So I grew up with my brother Les, and we were tight. And at times we were separated so I would live with my dad and he would live with my mom, and we flip-flopped every once in a while. And that was a horrible time in our lives. We literally were combined at the hip and then separated at a few different times in our lives. In the middle of that, my father had 4 more children. So, all right, here it goes. So my dad married our babysitter.
Did you want me to get a whiteboard? We can.
Yeah, it's hard to break it down. So my dad married our babysitter she was 16 years old. I was 8. He was 32. So it was a weird, kind of creepy thing going on. And so sorry about this.
Wait a second. So is this legal?
I don't know if it was back then or not, but she had her parents' permission and whatnot.
Okay, so they signed off. Okay,
I think so. I think they had to, because he got her pregnant, and they had to get married. And so, anyways, we're at their honeymoon in Kansas, and my dad gets another woman pregnant. So I have 2 brothers that are 4 months apart, same age, and they didn't know each other. This is the hillbilly stuff in Kansas. Okay. So they didn't even know each other until one day they were going to school and they were best friends. And my brother comes home and says to my dad, "Hey, I want Adam to come over and stay the night." And he goes, "You better ask his mom, because I think that's your brother." And so they figured out they were brothers, and they've been best friends ever since. And of course they live in Kansas, and they're great friends, and I love them both too. I also have another brother and another sister. So my dad had 6 total kids, 3 different wives, and 2 of them are the same age, 2 different mothers. So it's quite confusing. Now, my father passed away when they were very young. I was 25. Like I said, I think I've got 8 years on my oldest sibling in Kansas. Me and my oldest brother, I'm the oldest. Me and my other brother, Les, we're 2 years apart. We're the closest in age. I go up to Alaska and see him twice a year. We do some fishing and hang out, and we're tight. Now that should give you a representation of what my childhood was like. That hillbilly crap right there was, that was riddled throughout my childhood. We were shown some very, untraditional grown-up things. I don't know if it was the 80s or what it was, but the movies that we watched back then, I was telling my wife that we watched Richard Pryor stand up on HBO when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere in there. And I would watch it every time it came on, and Dad had no problem with it. We just watched it. Porky's, all those R-rated movies were just part of our life. And, unfortunately, I witnessed a lot of bad things. I started smoking weed when I was 2 years old. My parents thought that would be a good idea. And I had to actually deal with not being able to smoke when I was 12, they cut me off from smoking weed. And so that sort of threw me for a loop. And that's when I also started to reach out and find my own drugs. And when you do that, it's no longer in the safety of your home. I started to get like other drugs, no, I don't have weed, but I have acid. And okay, let me try acid. These unsupervised ways of taking drugs sort of became a way of life. And I just sort of hopped from one high to the next from 12 years old on. And by the time I was 15, I was a full-blown alcoholic drug addict, taking acid all the time, doing cocaine all the time, drunk all the time. I would skip school and get drunk. I remember once in high school, my mom, she was on to me. She got sober when I was 14, and she was on to me. She knew what I was doing, and she was trying to keep me from being an alcoholic. And she tried real hard, but she called the school and wanted my attendance report. And I had missed 50 some classes. And what I would do is go out and get stoned and then come back to class. So I'd miss 1 or 2 classes here and there every day, pretty much. So I had to go and back then we didn't have the fancy computer. So I had to go and use the dot matrix and give her a fake report that showed that I only missed like 3 classes and get one over on her. But that's the sort of stuff that I was capable of. I was always working an angle with keeping myself high and out of the moment that I was in. Meanwhile, I supported this, I was a great athlete and I had some scholarship offers and things in wrestling and football and pretty much anything I wanted to do, I could do it. But I had this double life. I had one for the adults and then I had one with my buddies. And I tried not to let them cross, but every once in a while I'd be at a family function and be high as a kite. There wasn't much I could. And that went on until I was 30 years old. So needless to say, the right and wrong, when I talk about that, I literally had to learn that as an adult, what was right, what was wrong. And when nobody's looking, I think that's the key, right? When nobody's looking, are you going to do the right thing?
Right.
And for me as a child, almost every time I was doing something that made me feel good rather than something that was right, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So just some reflections.
Yeah.
I have recorded well over 700 shows to date. I have never heard a story like that.
Oh.
Like that. First of all, I'm not sure who honeymoons in Kansas City, but if you live in Alaska, maybe Kansas City is like this booming tropical, like destination. I don't live far from Kansas City, so and neither do you. It's the state between us, actually.
Right.
But wow. So mom and dad, older brother, marries the babysitter, has an affair while on the honeymoon, another sibling, 6 total siblings. Fast forward, you tried drugs for the first time when you were 2. And then it sounds like there was this pretty liberal, obviously, freedom in your home to be like, oh yeah, like let's just whatever, right? Richard Pryor and Porky's and drugs and all this other stuff. So that became the norm, right?
Right.
It's just as a kid, you're probably like, oh yeah, this is just it's like what we do, right?
Right.
Are your parents still alive?
So my dad died in 97.
Okay.
He was actually murdered by police officers in Kansas and Salina, Kansas. And I say it like that because that's really what happened. But my father, the way I found peace in his death, because it did send me for a loop. We were fighting at the time. I thought I was better than him because he was going down a meth trail. And the last time I saw him, he was so drugged up that he couldn't even hold my baby. And that pissed me off. And at that point I wrote him off, but then he ends up in the hospital, brain dead. And so I got a chance to say goodbye to him. But the part that came at peace was that he lived a lifestyle that got him to a point where he was in an altercation with the police and the police killed him. And whether they meant to or not, I don't know. The circumstances of that incident point to that they were highly reckless, no matter what. But when he died, he left some very young children, which it's funny because me and Les, my youngest oldest brother, we have a very different viewpoint of our father than the youngest of his children, who was 8 years old when he died. That brother and my sister idolize still to this day him. They have him on a pedestal and they think he was some sort of God. And we speak very differently about our father today. And I think that it's all relative to them. They only knew, when the kids are young, you are a God to them. And he passed away when they were young. Now, but when I grew up and I realized who he was quickly, by the time I was 12, 13 years old, I knew what he was about, and I idolized it, but it wasn't good. And we went through, I've been in fist fights with that man. His women have sexually abused me. The things that he allowed to go on in my life were not okay. And I couldn't imagine doing that to my own children. And that's left me a very, it's a negative outlook on what a father would be. And so for me, it was good because it was kind of like a blank slate when I decided that I was going to be, who am I going to be as a father? And when I got sober and said, I can't do what my father's been doing, this is, it's not working, and I'm going to screw up my own children. It's not fair to them. What can I be like what am I going to do to be a father? It was a blank slate because I knew I couldn't do any of that stuff. So now what can I do? And it can all be positive, and I can make it as positive as I want it to be because I have nothing in my past that was positive that I can show my children. I sort of just wiped it all away and started fresh when I was 30. And so when I got sober, my oldest child was 6 years old, and I hadn't seen him in 6 months. And of course I was homeless and going down the same path my father did. And when I woke up and said, hey, it's time to stop this and be a father, I got sober and I started I just used the old adage. My sponsor told me, a good father just shows up. And I used that for many years. Like all I got to do is just be there and I'll be a good father. That's it. And I went years without seeing my father. I didn't see him all through high school. And so 5 years from living in his house to getting away from that and moving in with my mother. And I went 5 years without even seeing him. I talked to him maybe that many times. Once a year, we'd talk to him on the phone. And, he never paid child support. He never really supported anything. When I got into college, sorry, I have real dad issues here. So when I got into college, he was someone I could go to and I'd go party with him, and I'd bring my friends and we would have the best time in the world on the weekends, but he was just a buddy. He still wasn't a father, and that's what led to the fist fights. I'd have this internal rage about how he raised us and how he screwed me up, and we'd get drunk, and next thing you know, we'd be arguing and fighting and rolling around in the alley. And I don't know, somehow, and then we'd wake up and give each other a hug the next day. So black and blue.
So number one, dude, thank you for being so authentic. I want to recognize something here though.
Yeah.
As you speak about some of the things that you went through, there was some emotion that came up. Yeah. What were you feeling?
Well, so first of all, I don't mind sharing that stuff, but not a lot of people want to hear it. And those are things that I pretty much hide from my today's life. In fact, nobody really knows my history until I wrote the book, and then it kind of just came out. So what I feel is tremendous loss. What a waste of a life my father had, and he wasted my life too. I never got a chance to know what it was like to be a child because I was high right off the bat. And when I say high, I mean, if I wasn't high, I was chasing the high. Every time I saw a joint being passed around, I was looking to get in the middle of the circle with my dad's friends and stuff. That it sort of drove me to be around adults instead of kids. I got along better with adults, and it was all because they were smoking weed all the time. They were hippies, and I would just wanted to be around it. And so I would get in the mix of it. And that sort of drove my life right from the beginning. And it sort of makes me mad and upset that I was not given that opportunity. All the potential is gone. Now today, at the end of it all, like, gosh, I'm here. I'm successful. I've got great kids. I was a good father. Looking back on everything, I'm so glad everything went down the way it did. But the loss of your childhood is probably, you'll never get that back. That's gone forever. I'll never get to relive that. And that's sort of sad in my eyes. But you know what? It was good for my children, for me to feel that. I don't know what kind of father I would have been if I wouldn't have went through that, if that makes sense at all.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, man. My story doesn't even compare to yours. Not that this is a comparison, right? But, I didn't go through nearly some of those extremes that you did.
Yeah.
However, my biological father and my mother were divorced when I was around 1. And then he was gone. And then my mom got remarried when I was 4. I never knew my biological father. I had no recollection of him. And then when I was 12, he and I ran into each other by mistake.
Oh.
Kind of crazy. And then my stepdad was around till the time I was 4 to the time I was 10. They got divorced. I haven't seen him since. Was reunited with my father when I was 12. We had a 6-month relationship. We drifted apart. He exited my life. And then I ran into him by mistake in a coffee shop when I was 30.
Oh my God.
My mom was married 3 times, and every man who she was married to is the same guy, just different face, different name, right? Same, alcohol. And I can't confirm nor deny if there was drug use. But there was a lot of toxicity, a lot of abuse, a lot of things, right? And I think for a long time I had that victim mentality of like, I will never have a successful marriage because I never saw one. I will never be a good father because I didn't have one. All these stories I kind of told myself.
Right.
And, I think one thing that you and I have in common is the fact that we drew a line in the sand growing up, or at some point, right, that this stops here and these things will not happen on my watch when I'm a father. And I agree with you. There was a lot of my childhood that I felt was lost. But here's one of the cool things. And just talking to you, and I feel like in a way we're kindred spirits, right? And the one thing that I've realized is that, yeah, some of my childhood sucked. And I have 4 boys. They're 15, 13, 7, and 5. And my 2 oldest boys will ask me about my childhood, and I'll tell them, not in a pity sort of way, but I'll tell them things that have happened. And they're like, I feel so bad for you. I'm like, don't feel bad for me, because number 1, don't give me sympathy. But number 2, I'd probably be a crappy father. Right. If maybe I had everything that I ever dreamed of. Right. But I got to learn some serious, valuable lessons. Right. And I'm so motivated I get to do Dad Edge every day. And I have been for 6 years. Right. And because of that childhood. And here's the cool thing that I want us, just for you and I, to reflect on for a minute. And that is, we might have had a crappy childhood, but because we had a crappy childhood, we got to show up big as a father, and we got to enjoy fatherhood. It's not all roses, right? But I think we've probably delivered a better experience. And here's the final cool thing. We got to redo our own childhood through our kids' eyes. And as I say that, how does that hit you?
Oh man, you hit it right on the head. While you were speaking, I'm thinking, I have not still grown up. I'm actually reliving my childhood with my kids as they're growing into their adulthood. And I think before you hit record, we were talking a little bit about it, and I've got adult children now, and I'm enjoying that part of their lives too, with them, all their experiences they're sharing with me, and I'm just right there with them and enjoying it. Most of it, and I personally still have not grown up, and I like that about me is, I'm still my wife's child in her eyes. She's I'm always pushing the envelope, and I'm childlike for life. I think that's just who I am, and I'm okay with that. And I'll be okay with it when I have grandchildren. You know, I get to do it all over again and again and again. It'll be great. I'm like you. I feel like thank God I had that childhood, and I it wasn't all bad. My mom was very helpful at teaching me lessons, and I honestly think that maybe today kids are too coddled and they need to have a little more of what I grew up with. Maybe see a little bit of real world. I personally, I've taught my kids about money, and I was just talking to my youngest the other day. His engine blew up in his car. And I said, well, do you need help? And he goes, no, Dad, I saved my money. I'm good to go. And I went, oh man, at your age, I would have definitely asked for money from my parents, or I would have not had a car for a very long time. And it was the neatest thing that they know what money's about. They know to save it. They know how not to spend it. It's the coolest thing in the world, because that is the opposite of me entirely. They a totally different track. And it's all because I went down that track. And I'll tell you that, you said you tell them about your childhood and you don't want sympathy. And I do the same thing. And when I tell them about my childhood, they're more like war stories, if you will, lessons for them to learn from, and the appropriate timing when we have the sex talk. Here's what I know. And by the way, now I can tell you about my stories about that. And, along their lives, drugs and alcohol, when that came up, when that was, when they hit a certain age, you got to talk about that. And boy, do I have stories for you, and I don't know if it helped them or not, but, it sure helped me feel like I was giving them some insight. And I was glad that, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'm pretty wise when it comes to life. I've lived a whole bunch of junk and done a lot of things wrong. And hopefully what I've lived through has helped them somehow not repeat and that's the great thing, right? We stop the cycle and they get to continue the cycle in the new way. And that's exciting. That's very exciting to see what their kids are going to grow up and be like. Your kids.
Man. Yeah, I love it, man. And your books, it's actually a perfect segue. You didn't even plan on this, but hey, that's a perfect segue, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how do we learn some of these things? So Ditches to Riches, how to survive your effed up life and create a kick-ass business. And I love how many symbols you have in the effed up part, because most people it's the F and then a star and then the CKED. But, I'm thinking of Gary John Bishop's book, but yours is like all kinds of symbols. You got the and sign, the percentage and the dollar sign. So I love it. So Ditches to Riches, how to survive your effed up life and create a kick-ass business. So let's talk about this. Cause at one point in time, you were homeless.
Yeah.
And you were homeless. You almost died.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And now, fast forward years later and you're doing amazing things in the world. But let's talk about let's let you off the hook for a second.
Okay.
Man, you have every excuse in the world to be a homeless, absolutely crazy person, right? Right. No success in your future whatsoever. And probably people, even if you were living that life, probably be like, oh, well, yeah, he never had a chance. Right. But, one thing that I've realized doing this podcast and doing this work is everybody's got a decision.
Yep.
Everybody's got a choice. You can either be a victim or you can be an executor. Choice is up to you, regardless of your circumstances. And as I did my homework on you and read your very unique story and your consequences, I'm like, I've definitely heard some rags to riches stories, and I've heard some stories of coming from the bowels of hell and then living this authentic life. I've never heard one quite like yours. So take us to that moment where you were homeless. Well, not a moment, but that time in your life, you're homeless, almost died. And then what was the flip that switched?
Yeah. My mom will argue this point, and I told her at one point, it's my book. I'm going to write it how I want to. What I heard, I was laying in the hospital after the second rollover car accident, and I was pitched from both of them. And this one, I ended up in the hospital. The first one basically walked away. I'm laying in the hospital and I have no money and I have no way to, I got a broken knee, basically all the ligaments tore. I couldn't even walk. And I'm laying there going, wow, I can't believe I lived through that. And boy, God's not going to take me. When will he? And I called her and I said, can you give me a few bucks so I can get home somehow? And what I heard was, F off. I am done with you. Don't call me again. And now, according to her, and fair is fair, she says that's not what she said. But that's what I heard. And that's what I needed to hear. She was the final bridge that I had burned, that no more did I have anybody to lean on and enable me. And now, mind you, for 6 months, I hadn't seen my children to this point. To the point in that hospital, it had been 6 months. And that was daily killing me. It was in my heart every second of every day. And I basically just drank that pain away all day long, to a point where I was waking up at 2 a.m. and slamming more drinks. Blue 100 was my drink of choice, 100 proof schnapps. And I would drink that, excuse me, I would drink that to get the shakes to go away so I could continue to sleep. And so I think it was at that moment I thought, well, I either have to get up or I have to die. This is it. I'm either going to be the biggest loser in the eyes of everybody around me, or I'm going to get sober. And that's all I knew, is get sober. That everything will be better if I get sober. Now, mind you, I had a mother that had gone through the AA program prior to me. She was already sober, I think 12 years or maybe more by that time. And she just kept preaching to me, just go to AA, just go to AA, just go to AA. And she did that for years. And I tried it a couple times, and I had bouts of sobriety for like 8 months, and life would get a little bit better. But then, I was still young. I'd go to a party and I'd get drunk, or I'd get high, and it would be over. I knew there was no more chances. That's it. It's either get up and do it or die and just go off yourself. And I'd had 2 prior times where I had actually tried to kill myself, and they were botched. Well, 3 really, but 2 that actually I did die, and I was brought back to life. And, thank God the cops were called on the spot, and they got there in time to save my life. And so even trying to kill myself wasn't working. So really there was no other way. So I just hauled butt back to where family was at here in Colorado. And that's when I decided that, it's time to get sober. My brother gave me a place to live as long as I was sober. So I just concentrated on that. I went to 90 meetings in 30 days because I never do anything. I do everything the alcoholic way, as high as possible, as much as possible, extreme as possible. Always, everything I do, it's to the max. And so I did 90 meetings in 30 days, and I stuck with them for about a year. But even 90 meetings in 30 days, I knew quickly that was not my jam. I was not meant to be an AA for the rest of my life either. And that's when I found business. I started working out, getting healthy and looking good, feeling good. And I had a job, and I also had a small business that I was working for. And so I started to save money, and I was able to save enough money to get a 1-bedroom apartment. And then I could start seeing my children again. So, that was really cool to me that, hey, I was able to do something with this money I saved. And that's when I started, okay, well, if I can do that, let's make this business over here bigger so I can quit working over here, because I'll have more time to be around my children. And it just sort of went on like that. I've since opened 11 different businesses in that same manner. And I'm never looking for ordinary. And so when businesses become ordinary, I sort of tend to either sell them or get away from them and let someone else run them. So, and I'm on to the next one, and that's just the pattern of my life. So I don't think I had any choice in staying in that loser space I was in, that homelessness, that drunken stupor. There was no choice for me anymore. And I look back on it now, and it was a brief moment in life. It was homeless for 3 to 4 months in there. It was truly homeless, no place to live at all. Otherwise I was sucking off of people and being a drain on society before that. So, I think everybody, everybody has this inside them. When enough is enough, you change your circumstance. And I do see a lot of people. I'm a bail bondsman, and I do see a lot of people that never get out, and it's sad because they're full of potential. I have one guy that I used to bail out on petty crimes 25 years ago, and today he's homeless and he doesn't remember me. And I used to bail him out monthly, and now he doesn't even remember me. And I buy him beer because he's 60 something years old, still walking the streets, had a beautiful wife, kids, all that. And they're all gone. And because he drinks. And I figured, well, he's not going to be around much longer. I'll just continue to help him out. So I give him $5 in front of the liquor store, and, whatever. He's chose to not get out.
Man, oh man.
Sad.
So, the one of the cool things about there are several things in your story, too much to even count, of how many times, like, you're like, you have like 9 lives, like a cat, right?
Yep.
And interestingly enough, I think anybody who knows someone who deals with addiction, a lot of us who don't have addictions, we feel that we could fix them.
Right.
If I just do this, or if I just say that, or if I just show them this, and to be honest, what you just really illustrated beautifully was there was no one that would do that. And it wasn't until you had a realization that you're like, oh, wow, like, okay, that was the last straw with my mom. Right. And that's your rock bottom moment, as AA would call it. Right. And so let's talk about how you look at life now. Let's talk to the dad. Let's glean some lessons from Ron's adversity and the things that he faced and how he goes about life. So give us a day in the life of you. What do you do and how do you operate?
Well, so first of all, I work.
Actually, as I said that, I'm going back to the movie Office Space, where the Bob is like, so what would you say you do here? That's why, and I didn't mean it that way. What I meant. So I want to get to the, see Michael Bolton, what we want to do here. No, I'm kidding. You can just call me Mike. No, honestly, what I'd really like to do is I want to get to these tactics, right? Because again, you have every reason in the world to not show up the way you are, but yet you are. But it really boils down to the behaviors, the tactics, vision, and how I'm going to operate, right?
Right.
So what is a day in life for you?
Yeah. So first of all, I've learned there's a lot of guilt in my life, and I've learned to put the guilt aside. And because I've gotten so much more on the other side that I don't have to feel guilty about things from my past anymore. They're more like medals of honor. And so I wear them on my vest like, hey, I've got this wisdom that I can offer people around the world. And I wake up every single day in a positive frame of mind to annoyance. I mean, I'm always singing in the shower. I'm always singing. I sing the same song every day. The Toys R Us theme song comes to my head every single morning.
You're jogging my memory now. What is the Toys R Us theme song? I try to remember from when I was a kid.
Something along the Mommy Wow. It comes to my mind every morning, and right now I can't sing it. I'm sorry. My wife could probably tell you, because she freaking yells at me every morning because she'll be sleeping. I'll be in the shower singing it. Now I'm forgetting it.
You know what, guys? Don't even worry about it. We'll have a link to the YouTube video for the Toys R Us commercial in the show notes. So that's
there you go. Please, I need to pull it up. But for some reason, it always comes up. And so I'm singing in the morning, and I start out, no matter how crappy my day before was, I always end up positive the next morning, ready to go, new day. I'm grateful to be alive. That's just it. And, I'm running several different businesses. And so I'm always dealing with people that are helping me run those. And to them, I'm still in a father role, if you will. So I'm adding advice and wisdom to their days. And that's sort of how I want to live. I don't really want to be bogged down with the daily grind. I don't want to look at a calendar and go, oh, I have 19 things to do today for other people. I want to do today. I've become a little selfish in my 40s, and I'm trying to do, how can I be better today for me, not for anybody else, but for me, and which makes me better for everybody else. So it's, I know that, but that's not what the goal. The goal is, how can I get up today and feel good about myself? I do battle insecurity all day long. That's just part of me. It's ingrained from childhood. And there's a lot of things in my life that I learned to just live with, and you add processes around those. And so, when I'm feeling insecure about something, if I have to make a cold call, oh my gosh, I am the worst cold caller in the world. I can't do it. I don't like it. I mostly hire it out. But if I have to do one, I'll pace around here freaking out for 20 minutes until, I psych myself up to do it. It's the worst thing on earth to me. But that's sort of the processes I use all day long in everything I do. And my wife laughs because it's so automatic with her. But for me, I have to go through my values. I have to go through my anger management skills, my everything all day. And it's, by the end of the day, I'm exhausted from running through my brain so much. But so it's always good to start over in the morning and be positive no matter what you can do. Just start off positive. And then it's mostly running around helping people all day, helping my businesses, helping people that run them. I work 7 days a week, and I like that. I don't like downtime. So on Sundays, we still are working, and that's fine with me. It's a little less work. I don't have the day-to-day stuff going on with the employees, but I'm a bail bondsman. I'm 7 days a week, no matter what. That's my main gig. And so I deal a lot with that. Now, I can say that bail bonds has drugged me down so far. I'm about to pass the torch on that one and be done with that. That is a lot of negativity, and I just can't do it. Daily life for me is a phone call to either to my children. I usually talk to them every day, one of them every day. And I also get into a text message or two with my mother. I try to keep those types of people near and dear to me. And then I'm always spending, so I have an hour of power I call the dream time. That's when, okay, what am I going to do to start tomorrow off in a different place? And that's, some people call it active meditation. That's my dream time. I'll be out in the garage putting something together, or I'll be at the gym or wherever. I do work out every day, by the way. So I'll do that dream time. And that's when I come up with what's next in this business, what's next in my life, what's next in, what can I fix? What can I do? And I sort of make a list for my week, for my tomorrow, and get ready, to change those things that I need to. I think that's part of me always wanting to be better is like part of my life. I'm never good enough for myself. And so I'm always trying to fix. So how could I do that better? Or, I spend a lot of time with that, to be honest, but that's also how I end up starting these damn businesses, man, is I get myself in trouble. Oh, that would be easy. Let me try that. And I do this and I do the next thing, I've got another business and I'm off to the races with something for another 6 months. So it's fun. There for a while, I used to paint every single day. I wanted to learn how to paint. And so my daughter got me a basic painting set, and it just kind of grew from there. And pretty soon I was painting every day for my dream time. And I would sit back, and for an hour or 2 hours, I would just paint these awesome paintings. And pretty soon people wanted me to start painting for them. And then pretty soon I was getting phone calls for shows, and
it's another business.
Yeah, it just became another business, man. And then, so I quit painting just like that, just stopped. And I threw everything out and put it away, and I haven't painted since. It's been like another 2 years and I haven't painted, but
did you grow out your hair like Bob Ross? Did you?
Yeah, I wish. I have a hair issue, son. I've got to swoop and pull it forward and all that to cover the bald spots.
You are seriously a very authentic person.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, man. And, it reminds me of a quote is, to know thyself.
Yeah.
And to be in authentic, right? The podcast I recorded right before you, I won't mention who it was, but highly successful, just multi-gazillionaire, right? And there was a lot of like, I'm awesome, like doing this, like a lot of that. You also very successful, but there's so much humility there. Yeah. There's so much authenticity there. There's so much imperfection there.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about you, Ron, is that you embrace it and you know it, and you don't try to cover it up with, well, if I just do this. Now, granted, you've run a lot of businesses, but it seems like maybe you thrive in that space of, hey, I like a challenge. I like being busy, but at the same time, you know yourself. And I love this aspect of dream time. You and I are similar in that way, to where, my kids think I'm crazy, and so do a lot of other people. I wake up at 3:55 every single morning. Ooh. And I wake up at 3:55 every single morning, and I start I'm in the gym by 4:25. And the funny thing is I know by the minute exactly what I'm doing until 6:55 when I pull into my driveway and I'm taking my kids to school. And then I have that nice solid 10, 15 minutes with them.
Yeah.
But that's when I do, even during my workouts. And, I spend 20 minutes in the sauna after my workout every day. And I pray and I visualize and I think very strategically about how I'm going to show up that day, what I'm going to do, what the day looks like, the relationships, the looks, even how I'm going to look at my boys, when I see them, and be authentic and be intentional and all those things I think are super important to have that space. You call it dream time. I call it a morning routine, but to have that space of like, what exactly am I going to do? And how can I bring my best self today, even though I'm just incredibly imperfect, I'm incredibly imperfect. I'm flawed in a gazillion ways that I can't even count. Yet I choose to show up in the way that I am.
Yeah, absolutely. I always feel like I have to earn my presence in anything. And especially when I have business partners. For instance, I just started a development company, and I spent the first month asking my wife why I was a part of this. These guys don't need me. Like, what am I doing here? This is something I've never developed anything, but what I did do and what I came to, how I'm earning my place is business is relationships. And when someone told me that years ago, I just kind of ran with it. And I went out and tried to make as many relationships as I could. And now over 25 years, you kind of got a lot of those. And I was able to put two different pieces of this business together. And therefore I'm the third piece. And I spend a lot of time right now trying to earn my place in that company. And most of my dream time is exactly what you said. And it's, how can I be better today? And focus on that space. I don't want to let those two guys down. I want them to understand that I'm here for a reason, even though I may not think I need to be here for right now. I think I have a lot to learn, but man, I'm here and I'm going to learn from those guys. And so even if it's just opening my ears up to what's going on around me, that's the best I can do today, then that's what I'm going to do. I learned years ago that faking it doesn't always work. There's, I have in my book, I write about faking it until you make it. And that phrase is great and all, and it works for dressing up and dressing the part and acting like you own the room. That's great and all, but at the end of the day, if you're dumb or ignorant to something, you can't hide that. And so that's where the authentic Ron Worley comes out. I'll just tell you, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm not educated. And I do use my past as I tell people I didn't graduate college. I'm dumb. Explain it to me, and it's sort of, you talk about authenticity. I'm so tired of faking it that I have to be authentic. There's no, I can't pretend to be smart anymore. I did that in my 20s and it doesn't work. And I'm not a smart man in the way of books. I'm street smart and I know people, and that's how I get stuff done. Excuse me.
And you know movie quotes. So.
And I know movie quotes. Man, I wish I could remember that Toys R Us song. It comes to me every single morning, and now I can't think of it. I apologize.
I'm actually shocked I can't either, because my wife, like when I bust out a movie quote, like she's like, God, that's just like such wasted brain space. I was like, it's literally impossible for me to remember that part of my brain where I put my keys, because 95% of the rest of the brain is filled with random movie quotes. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, totally. But here's the funny thing. You talk about, smarts and school smarts and college and all this stuff. My oldest, I struggled in school. Yeah, I was voted my 8th grade year, which I failed. I failed 8th grade. I had to redo it. How humiliating is that?
Back when they still failed kids.
Now they're just like, oh, you can turn it in late. Oh, we'll just round it up. Oh, you got a 70. That's a 90. Right. But I didn't do well in school, and I was like literally voted, not officially, but unofficially, like least likely to succeed in anything. I was a heavy kid. I had 2 left feet when it came to athletics, and I was terrible in school. And I was a shit show, just to put it lightly. Right. And, but one thing I've learned is that that's not, now granted, I finally learned how I learn. And I did really well in college. I made the dean's list all 4 years. I made the dean's list my junior and senior year of high school, but I finally learned how I learn. And it wasn't, so like, for instance, one of the things I did, I noticed that if I watched the teacher or the professor, explain the whatever lesson, right, I would lose focus, because I'd start to like look at things around the room. And one thing, as long as I put my head down, meaning I would look at my notes, I would listen to the teacher, I'd reflect on what they're saying, and I'd write it. And as I was writing it, I would see it. And if I could do that, I could remember it.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that's cool. And then suddenly, just like that, school became easy, but I had to learn how I learned. Now, one thing I tell my oldest son, who also struggles in school, he even has an IEP, which is, individual education plan. He's always like, I'm stupid. I have to be pulled out of my classes for reading and math. I'm stupid. I'm not as smart as everybody else. I don't make and he's a B and C student. And I always tell him, I'm like, Ethan, school is not the end all be all of how brilliant you are. In fact, I would argue that a lot of the people I went to school with who were straight A students, if I look at them now, they're not doing much with their life, or they have no social skills, or they have 0 relationships, or there's something super dysfunctional about them. He is a gifted, empathetic person who builds trustworthy relationships, and he's a very authentic kid. And I always tell him, like, get through school. There's not one person on the planet that's going to ask you, what did you make in your 8th grade algebra class? Not one. Get through school. We'll help you get through it. Be the person that you are. You are humble. You are imperfect. You are relatable. You are empathetic. You read people. And that is a gift. That goes so much further than what you got on that test, right? You could have the smartest person in the world, but if they have no relatability to them, they're not going to lead people. They're not going to lead themselves. They could have all kinds of dysfunction in their entire life. And maybe the school was the one thing that they were good at, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so I think that there's a lot to be said for the folks out there who are raising kids who, they struggle in school, or like someone like yourself who admittedly, like, hey, it's not my cup of tea, but there are other beverages out there to enjoy. Right?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, and my wife, so she went through college in 2 years, got her 4-year degree, and was a police officer at 21 years old. Her life from beginning to end at that point was education. And I mean, I'm telling you, she is very, very smart and can study a test and pass it in no time. I will tell you, I beat her by 1 point on the real estate test though. So that's huge for me. But anyway, her education, though, it didn't take her very far. It took her into a regular job as a police officer. And quickly, by the time she was 25, she was already hating that job. And she could get any job she wanted after that, but none of it made any sense. And now she's a real estate agent making 5 times the amount of money she was as a cop. And just by being around me and me talking to her about unlimited income potential and where I could really point her and our team. So she's super smart and knows right and wrong, but she can't stand in a room and just talk to people. She's very socially extrovert, but I can. So that's where I come in, and I can talk to the people in the room, and then she can execute. And it has worked brilliantly. She's taught me about being a little smarter and reading and things like that, but I've taught her how to stand up in front of a room and own the damn room. That's truly a gift if you have it that will make you money someday, By the way, mommy, wow, look at me. I'm a big kid now.
Oh no, Ron, thank you. It's going to be in the mental Rolodex for the next 24 hours. Just like Daddy Shark. Oh my God. Whoever invented that song, I seriously, they need to be lashed. I think like some of the things, my wife, we're going way off topic here, but it's just too funny. Like some of the things that, we see like our kids watch every now and then, like Teen Titans Go and SpongeBob. I would just love to be a fly on the wall when that brilliant marketer came up with like, all right, check this out. So I have an idea for a show. All right, picture this. There's a sponge. Okay, he's got this insanely annoying voice to the point where like it reverberates your spine when he talks and laughs, and he wears pants, and we'll call him SpongeBob. Well, SquarePants, because he has pants. And then let's give him 2 friends that are twice as annoying as far as their voices go. And they live in a pineapple under the ocean, which, by the way, also makes no sense. Kids would watch that, right? I'm just like, some of these things, man, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, they're definitely getting high on something.
Yeah. I don't know. One of my favorite comedians, man, is Jim Gaffigan. And I love, he points out some of the obvious things. And he talks about like a marketing person who came up with the Stairmaster. And he's like, can you imagine that meeting? Like, he's like, people like walking upstairs. Well, these are different. They don't go anywhere. You never get to the next floor. And eventually you die. So yeah, some of these things, man, that we hear on these commercials and whatnot. But anyway, back to what we're really talking about here. I love the fact, again, I'm curious to know, what are the 3 personalities of your kids growing up with, the parent that you are, the man that you are. And by the way, I love in this entire podcast, you never said good and fine. Yeah, we're good. Oh, we're fine. Busy. We're busy though. It's like all these good things and it's all these imperfect things all at once. So just as we wrap up here, what are the personalities of your kids?
Yeah. So my oldest is my daughter, and Peyton, she is very stubborn. She's going to do life her way, no matter what. I actually had her working for me for a little bit. She's like me, man. She is striving and she wants to prove to me, and she's very forward thinking all the time. She currently owns 2 businesses herself at 23 years old. And it started out working for me, and I thought I had somebody who was going to sit in my, write me a check and I'm out, I thought that's what I was headed towards, but she quickly outgrew me and is running life her way. And nothing like I thought it would be. but it has nothing to do with me. So I'm cool with that. She's happy, and all three of them are happy. And that's all you can ask for as a parent, being happy. Now, my youngest is the only one that's ever gotten straight A's. And he's also the only one he's very aloof. There's not a lot of drive there. He's a mechanic, and he's not even going to school to be a mechanic. He's working at a mechanic shop, and he worked for free for 6 months. He's very enduring. So he worked for free for 6 months to learn how to be a mechanic. And then they started paying him like $6 an hour, which $15 an hour is the minimum here. And he's worked his way up in the last year and a half to making the minimum wage in a mechanic shop. And again, he's not like, he's very mechanically inclined now, but he started with a startup and they gave him a shot, and he swept the floors and learned how to do oil changes. And he didn't even know what a wrench was when he started. He knew he liked cars. That's it. So that kind of person I love, because those are the kind of people I would hire. They'll just be there for you. They're part of the family, and they will work for you forever. And so I love that about him. He's very slow to think and change and do anything else. And that's fine with me as long as he's happy. And then my middle son, so they always thought he had learning disabilities, but he's my only kid in college, and he's about to graduate. And he has taken advantage of every single thing that I've ever offered him. He's a sponge. He learns. He's very gifted in talking. He's like a great combination of my great attributes and my bad attributes. He loves to be in a room full of people and tell jokes, but he also is very, he's very brave. He's not afraid to try something new. He just got a job with a lending company and is getting his loan officer's license while he's finishing up college. Potentially going to do very good. My wife and I do about 65 deals, 70 deals a year between us in real estate, and he's getting ready to take those on for us. So he's going to do well. And we're actually looking at him we're going to probably start a lending company. I need him to have a few more years experience, and then we'll let him run that thing. And that will be my check writer so that I can bounce out of here. Yeah. So
I'm starting to wonder what you don't do.
I want to try everything. So here's the thing, right? When I died the second time, when I had heart failure and I died in the courthouse doing my job, I realized that if I don't start doing things, I'm going to die leaving all my money and everything to everybody else and never had done anything that I wanted to do. So every time something pops up in my head, I got to try it. And if there's an angle to make money, I want to try it. Now, a lot of those things don't make it because my wife is a great stopper of dumb things, so he is very good. When I go, honey, this great idea, we'll make millions. And she goes, stop, it's not going to work. We're not doing it. And that's it. It's done. And it's great. It's a great thing for her to do that to me. But there's many things that slide under the radar, her radar. And yeah, I've tried a lot of things, man. I've failed at a lot of things too. But
it's a complementary relationship, though. You kind of have the CEO who's the dreamer, the visionary, the direction. And then you have someone like the CFO is like, nope, not going to work, man.
Right. Right. She very much is the CFO.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really cool, man. And I feel like I'm leaving something, the next step is, I think I'm going to add playing the piano to it, but I want to sing Brown Eyed Girl to my wife someday. That's our song for her. She's Brown Eyed Girl. And when we first met, I used to play that song for her all the time. And I would like to sing it, and I have no voice to sing at all. So it's literally going to take classes to do it. And so that's the next goal. But then I saw a guy playing the piano yesterday at the hospital, and I'm like, man, I want to learn how to play the piano. That looks really cool. And there's something like a drive in me that says I want to do all this stuff to impress my wife. I don't know what that is, but it's really cool, and it's fine. Live like you're dying. That's the motto I live by now. After that death, I just try everything, do everything. When I die, I want people to say exactly what you said. What didn't he try? What didn't he do? And that's my legacy, man. All them damn stories they're going to tell.
Yeah. Life is a buffet of experiences, right?
Yeah.
And why why hold yourself down and be like, I don't play piano. I don't play guitar. Like, it's kind of funny. My oldest son, who I referenced, he's got my athletic skills growing up. So he's not the most athletic thing. And we joke about it, but man, he can pick up a guitar, and within 15 minutes, like he's like, "Hey Dad, I learned Thunderstruck." I'm like, "Oh wow, really?" And he's only been playing guitar for like 6 months. And he's like, "Yeah, check it out." And I'm like, wow. You blow my, and he plays bass guitar, saxophone, electric guitar. He played trombone for a while, but like, he loves music. And I'm like, dude, like, one day when I brought him home from lessons, he's like, "Dad, haven't you ever wanted to play guitar?" Or I'm sorry. He's like, "Have you ever wanted to play an instrument?" I was like, "Dude, I've always wanted to learn to play guitar." He's like, "Oh yeah?" He's like, "Well, how about you get out of that waiting room with the other parents on their phones and take some lessons with me?" And I'm like, challenge accepted. And I bought a Fender Stratocaster and started taking lessons. And I've been taking lessons for the past year. And the funny thing is, you want to know a secret?
Yeah.
I suck so bad I can't even see myself playing. It's not even funny. Like, my instructor, I think he just humors me because I pay him for me and my son to take lessons, but I am still learning. Every rose has its thorn. And my son, like, he's been taking lessons 6 months later than me. So I've been taking them for a year. He's been taking them for 6 months. And my son knows like 15 songs. And he's like, "Dad," he's like, "You ever think you're going to learn another song? Like, don't you get tired of that same intro?" I'm like, "Yeah, but my fingers just don't." I have to stick here, right? It's an excuse to hang out with you. That's what it is. Man, this has been so enjoyable. I want to make sure that all the men can find your book. They can connect with you, and maybe even some mentions of what you're most excited about over the next year or two, of things that you might be working on that maybe we don't even know about. So tell us all about it.
Yeah. So I am getting ready to partner with my mentor, Jim Hensel, and Mayhem Mindset. And so I want to start coaching. He's got a great program that worked for me. I've got a great story. So I figured the two of those, I can get into some coaching and do some things to help some people for reals. So that's coming up. That should happen by the end of the year. And but for now, I do mentor. I do talk to people a lot, give some of my wisdom. So anybody that wants to get a hold of me, jump on my website. It's ronworley.com. And that's WORLEY, ronworley.com. And just shoot me an email and we will converse that way. I'm happy to talk to anybody anytime. I get a lot of people that have lost direction. And when I start talking values and things and give them that mantra, together we can get through almost anything. So I've got 5 or 6 mentees right now that I'm still working with. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to do that, man. So I don't mind that at all. Get a hold of me there. And of course you can buy my book online there too. The book is great for anybody that's had any adversity in their life. The 10 values, the Worley way that I discuss in the book, are phenomenal for everybody, but I do challenge everybody to come up with their own values and work towards something for the individual. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Everything else is on Google. So just Google it.
You got it, man. Well, hey, gentlemen, not to worry. We're going to have all the links for Ron, his book, all his resources, everything that he mentioned in the show notes. We'll also have a link in there too for the patience course that I referenced midway through the show. Just go to gooddadproject.com/312. Again, gooddadproject.com/312. Ron, this was amazing. This was so much fun. I feel like we could talk for like 2 more hours if we really want to. This was super, super cool, man. But thank you for sharing your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for having me on, man.
You bet. My pleasure. Gentlemen, go out and live imperfectly legendary. Take care.